Hello, today I'm going to talk about the second draft of my outline in my writing process. So if you've seen the last video, I kind of detailed how I create my outline for my book New Eleusis, and over the last, I'd say 2 weeks, I had a little bit of a speed bump because a friend was in town visiting me. But over the last 2 weeks, I've been trying to go through the outline, the existing outline, which is quite rough still. The first thing I did is I printed it, which I think is a good idea when you're trying to get into the second draft, not just in the outline, but in the writing as well. So I printed it and I went through it, and the first read through was just to kind of refresh my memory. As I was going through it, I decided that I was going to use the comment section, which is in the review section of Microsoft Word. Typically this is used when you're doing track changes to leave comments about edits you want to make and stuff in the proofreading and editing process. But in my case, for this outline, I used it to make comments on things that I wanted to address in the main outline, and it was a way to kind of put them off to the side. So as you can see by this photo here, I am trying to kind of capture the emotional beats of the protagonist in these sections, just to kind of give myself a little more information, and a lot of it was after the initial outline was completed. And as you can see by these other images, I went through and I just jotted down notes on the paper, which is pretty self-explanatory, but highlighting a few things. And one of the things I did was go through my list of characters and make sure that all of them had a purpose, a clear purpose, or some kind of arc. Most of that I already accomplished in the first draft, especially for the major 4 or 5 characters. The protagonist is definitely solid in this case, but I have several other kind of tertiary characters that serve certain functions in the plot. You could just leave them there as this function, but I think it's important for each character to be as alive as possible, and in order to do that, I think they have to have some kind of arc, even if it's a very minor one. So I found those characters and I started writing in notes of where I could bump up their story a little bit. It's quite easy to do because I left some areas vague in the outline. So I think that it is possible to over-plan your outline, because when you get to the writing process, you do want some wiggle room and you do want room to play. And if you hammer it down too much, I think you kind of beat the life out of it a little bit. So I left some areas vague, and that allowed me to insert some of these minor characters. And there were some other things I discovered after I completed the first outline, so I included those as well. I am going to look at it again before I go to the final outline. I usually do about 3 versions. I mean, you could easily do 5, or if you want, you can do 1 if you think that's enough. I don't think that's enough. Like any creation, it's easy to hammer the life out of it, so I think 3 is kind of the sweet spot. My next video is going to be the final outline and what I've done with that. In the next few weeks, I'm going to be gearing up for the first draft, and there are a few videos I'm going to publish about that. One will be kind of my final organization of my Scrivener file. When you're in the first draft process, it's like running a marathon. If you haven't prepared for it properly, it's very easy to run into blocks or snags, problems. So like I've said in previous videos, it's very important to have yourself ready. And the outline is one facet of that, but also your notes, I think, need to be kind of organized, and you have to make sure your characters are all complete. So a lot of that I'm going to do in the next few weeks. I'm also going to set up 2 spreadsheets. One of them is going to be with the online program Pacemaker, which is going to keep track of my word count. And the other one is going to be an Excel spreadsheet that is there more for moral support, I guess, and I'll explain more about that in that video. I'll also do a video about printing things because I think it's important when you're in the drafting process to have everything very organized, and it's much easier if something is printed because you can just flip through it. I mean, I know, you know, in the digital age everyone uses the search function, and I think there's a beauty to that, especially in the editing process. But in the writing process, I like to have my screen devoted only to the writing. I think it's important to print it out because then while you're writing you can jot down notes quickly in the outline or the other proto outlines that you might have, or in some of the backstories. It's just easier to write it down. So at this point I think my first draft is going to start probably in December, but I am going to be moving at that time, so I'm not exactly sure how much extra time I'm going to have to be able to devote to that. But that's my plan at this point. It kind of depends on the next few weeks. I'm pretty sure December and January will be the start, and I'm going to allot myself 3 months to do the first draft. Now, I may go back and add another month if I get through that amount of time and it isn't even remotely close to done. We'll see. You could do it in a month if that's the only obligation you have, but I have many other obligations. So in my pacemaker video, I will show you how many words I do a day and all that kind of stuff. But that's about all I got for this. The next video will be the final draft of the outline. You can like, subscribe, check out some of the writing tips if you want. That's all I got. Take care. Have a good day.